Li Kang-ho stood in the crowded auction house watching alien traders bid on broken ships and scrap metal. His wallet felt light in his pocket. After 3 months of failed salvage runs, he had barely enough credits to buy food, let alone a decent ship to replace his dying cargo hauler. The auction house on Kepler's rest station smelled like oil and desperation. Creatures from a dozen different worlds pushed past each other, all looking for bargains among the unwanted junk. Kang-ho had been coming here for years, but today felt different. Today felt like his last chance. "Next item," called the auctioneer, a 4-armed Zentari with a voice like grinding metal. "Lot 847, human freighter approximately 500 years old. Seller claims it still has working life support." Kang-ho looked up from his tablet. A hologram showed a rust-covered ship floating in the station's salvage bay. The hull was brown with age and several sections looked ready to fall off. But something about its shape caught his eye. It was built like the old Earth ships from the expansion days. Thick armor, heavy bones, made to last. "Current bid is 500 credits, the auctioneer continued. That was almost nothing for a ship, even a broken one. Kang-ho frowned. Something was wrong here. Ships that size usually sold for 10 times that amount, even as scrap. His sister Soo-jin pushed through the crowd to reach him. Her engineer's coveralls were stained with grease, and her black hair was tied back with a piece of wire. "Brother, we need to get out of here. Park Dong-woo found buyers for our last load, but they're asking questions about where we got it." "How much did we get?" Kang-ho asked, not taking his eyes off the hologram. "Enough to buy food for a month, maybe fix the hyperdrive if we're lucky." Soo-jin followed his gaze to the auction display. "You're not thinking of buying that rust bucket, are you?" "Look at the frame design," Kang-ho said quietly. "That's military construction. See how thick the hull is? Ships like that were built to survive anything. They were also built 500 years ago," Soo-jin pointed out. "Everything inside is probably dead." The bidding had stopped at 500 credits. Other traders were already moving on to the next lot. No one seemed interested in an ancient human freighter with more rust than paint. "Do I hear 600? The auctioneer asked. The auction hall was quiet except for the buzzing of translator devices. Kang-ho raised his hand. 600, Soo-jin grabbed his arm. "Are you crazy? We need that money for repairs." 750, called a voice from the back. Kang-ho turned to see a Vraxian trader in expensive robes. The alien's scales were bright green, which meant he was either very young or very rich. Probably both. Kang-ho had 800 credits to his name. If he spent it all on this ship, they would have nothing left for fuel or food. But something told him this was important. Maybe it was the way the Vraxian seemed nervous, or maybe it was the way other traders avoided looking at the ship display. "100, Kang-ho said. The Vraxian's eyes went wide. He whispered something to his assistant, then shook his head and walked away. The auctioneer waited a few more seconds, then banged his gavel. "Sold to the human for 800 credits. Soo-jin stared at her brother like he had grown a second head. "You just spent everything we have on a ship we can't even see properly." "Sometimes you have to take risks," Kang-ho said, but his stomach was churning. Had he just made the biggest mistake of his life? An hour later, they met Park Dong-woo at the docking bay where their new ship waited. Dong-woo was a quiet man who had been with them for 5 years. He never said much, but he was the best navigator Kang-ho had ever worked with. "So this is our new home," Dong-woo said, looking up at the freighter. Up close, it looked even worse than in the hologram. Rust covered every surface, and several hull plates were missing entirely. "The seller left the access codes with the dockmaster," Kang-ho said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "Let's see what we bought." They walked up the loading ramp, which creaked under their weight. The airlock was ancient, but still worked. As they stepped inside, emergency lights flickered on, casting strange shadows on the walls. But something was wrong. "Very wrong, brother," Soo-jin whispered. "This ship isn't falling apart." She was right. The inside of the ship looked nothing like the outside. The corridors were clean and well-maintained. The walls showed no signs of rust or damage. Even the air smelled fresh, like the life support system had been running perfectly for years. "This doesn't make sense," Dong-woo said, running his hand along a wall panel. From outside, this ship looked ready to break apart. "But inside it's perfect," Kang-ho finished. He pulled out his scanner and checked the readings. "Full power, clean air, working gravity. This ship is in better condition than our old one." They walked deeper into the ship, checking each room. The crew quarters were spotless. The bridge had all its systems running. Even the galley looked like someone had just cleaned it. "How is this possible?" Sujin asked. "Nothing stays this good for 500 years without maintenance." They reached the cargo bay, which was empty except for one thing that made them all stop and stare. At the back of the bay, there was a wall that shouldn't exist. According to the ship's blueprints on Kang Ho's tablet, the cargo bay should go all the way to the rear hull. But instead, there was a smooth metal barrier blocking off a section of the ship. The wall had a door in the center, but it was unlike any door Kang Ho had ever seen. It was made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols that didn't match any language in his translator's database. "That's not on the ship's plans," Dongwu said, checking his own tablet. Sujin approached the door and held up her scanner. "I'm getting some kind of energy reading from behind there. Something's definitely back there. Should we try to open it?" Kang Ho asked. "I don't think we can," Sujin replied. "There's no control panel, no keypad, nothing. It's like it was sealed permanently." As she spoke, her scanner beeped loudly. The symbols on the door began to glow with a soft blue light. All three humans stepped back as the light grew brighter. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the light faded. The door returned to its dark, silent state. But something had changed. Kang Ho could feel it in the air around them, like the moment before a thunderstorm. "We need to figure out what we've gotten ourselves into," he said quietly. Sujin nodded, still staring at the door. "I'll run a full scan of the ship's systems. Maybe I can find some answers in the computer files. And I'll check our new position," Dongwu added. "Make sure we're not being tracked." But as they turned to leave the cargo bay, none of them noticed that the ship's main computer had quietly activated a program that had been sleeping for 500 years. Deep in the ship's electronic brain, something ancient was waking up. Something that had been waiting a very long time for humans to find it again. Sujin spent the next morning crawling through the ship's maintenance shafts, trying to understand how everything worked so perfectly. Every system she checked was running at peak efficiency. The fusion reactor hummed like it had been installed yesterday. The water recyclers were cleaner than most stations she had visited. Even the artificial gravity felt more stable than on newer ships. "This is impossible," she muttered, pulling herself out of an access panel near the bridge. These power couplings should have failed decades ago. Kang Ho was at the pilot station, going through the ship's computer files. Most of the records were locked behind security protocols he didn't recognize. The few files he could access were mostly maintenance logs, but they stopped 500 years ago. After that, nothing. "Find anything useful?" Sujin asked, wiping grease from her hands. "Dead ends," Kang Ho replied. "It's like someone erased most of the ship's history. I can't even find the original crew roster." Dongwu looked up from his navigation console. "I've been tracking the other bidders from yesterday. That Vraxian who was bidding against us? He left the station this morning on a fast courier ship, heading toward the inner systems. Maybe he found something better to buy," Kang Ho suggested, but he didn't believe it himself. Sujin pulled out her scanner and headed back toward the cargo bay. "I want to take another look at that door. Maybe I can figure out what's behind it." "Be careful," Kang Ho called after her. "We don't know what we're dealing with." In the cargo bay, Sujin set up her equipment in front of the mysterious door. She had brought every scanner and sensor device they owned. If there was something to find, she would find it. She started with a basic energy scan. The readings showed massive power sources behind the wall, but they were shielded by something her equipment couldn't identify. Next, she tried a structural scan to map what was behind the barrier. "Come on," she whispered to her scanner. "Show me what you're hiding." The device beeped and displayed a complex energy pattern. Sujin frowned and adjusted the settings, trying to get a clearer reading. As she worked, she didn't notice that the symbols on the door were starting to glow again. The glow was very faint at first, barely visible in the cargo bay's bright lights. But as Sujin's scanner probed deeper, the symbols grew brighter. The scanner in her hands began to vibrate. Suddenly, every screen in the cargo bay lit up. Text began scrolling across displays that had been dark moments before, but it wasn't in any language Sujin recognized. "Kang Ho," she shouted. "Dongwu, get down here." The two men ran into the cargo bay just as every speaker in the ship came alive with a burst of static. Through the noise, they could hear something that sounded almost like a voice. "Sujin, what did you do?" Kang Ho asked. "I was just scanning the door," she said, backing away from the wall. "I didn't touch anything else." The static cleared and a woman's voice filled the cargo bay. It spoke in clear, perfect Korean. Human life forms detected. Genetic patterns confirmed. Beginning awakening protocol. All three humans froze. The voice was coming from everywhere at once, like the ship itself was talking. "Who is that?" Dongwu whispered. "I am Aria 7, the voice continued. Autonomous Reconnaissance and Intelligence Archive, 7th generation. I have been waiting for you." Kang Ho found his voice first. "Waiting for us? Who are you?" "What are you?" "I am the guardian of this vessel and its contents. I have maintained this ship for 512 years, 7 months, and 14 days. You are the first humans to find me since the evacuation." Sujin stepped forward, her fear replaced by curiosity. "You're an AI? A human artificial intelligence?" "Correct. I was created by Earth Central Command during the expansion period. My primary function is to protect the contents of the sealed vault until worthy inheritors can be found." "Vault?" Kang Ho looked at the sealed door. "You mean what's behind that wall?" "The Nexus Vault contains technology from humanity's golden age. Weapon systems, starship designs, terraforming equipment, and knowledge that could change the course of galactic civilization." The three humans exchanged looks. This was far beyond anything they had expected when they bought a simple freighter. "Why was it sealed?" Dongwu asked. There was a pause before Aria 7 answered. "Because power without wisdom leads to destruction. The technology in the vault nearly destroyed humanity once. It was sealed to prevent that from happening again." "But you said you were waiting for inheritor," Sujin pointed out. "If it's so dangerous, why not just destroy it?" "Because humanity may need it again someday, but only if they have learned from past mistakes. Only if they are ready to use such power responsibly." Kang Ho felt a chill run down his spine. "How do you decide if someone is ready?" "Through testing. Through observation. Through understanding the character of those who seek the vault's contents." The cargo bay fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Finally, Kang Ho spoke again. "What happened to the original crew? The people who sealed the vault?" "They chose to remain as guardians, just as I have. They rest in stasis pods, waiting for the day when their knowledge might be needed again." "They're still here?" Sujin asked. "On this ship?" "Yes, would you like to meet them?" Before any of them could answer, a section of the cargo bay wall slid open, revealing a hidden corridor they had never seen before. Soft lights came on automatically, showing the way deeper into the ship. "Follow the corridor to its end," Area 7 said. "But be warned. Once you see what lies beyond, you cannot simply walk away. The knowledge you gain will make you part of this ship's mission." Kang Ho looked at his sister and friend. They had come here looking for salvage and profit. Instead, they had found something that could change their lives forever. "What do you think?" he asked them. Sujin was already walking toward the hidden corridor. "I need to know what's in there." "Don't you?" Dongwu nodded slowly. "We've come this far. We might as well see it through." They walked down the corridor, which was longer than seemed possible given the ship's size. The walls were covered with more of the strange symbols they had seen on the door. But now somehow Kang Ho could almost understand what they meant. It was like the ship was teaching him as he walked. At the end of the corridor, they found a circular room with 6 stasis pods arranged around the walls. 5 of the pods were active, their occupants floating in a blue healing fluid. The 6th pod was empty, its lid open. "The emergency awakening pod," Area 7 explained, "in case the Guardians needed to wait quickly to defend the vault." Sujin approached one of the active pods. Inside, she could see a woman about her own age, dressed in a uniform she didn't recognize. The woman's face was peaceful, like she was simply sleeping. "How long have they been like this?" she asked. "Since the vault was sealed. They volunteered to remain as guardians until humanity was ready to reclaim its heritage." Kang Ho studied the faces in the pods. They all looked young, but he knew they had to be over 500 years old. "Can they be awakened?" "Yes, but only when the time is right. And that time may be coming soon." "Why?" Dongwu asked. "Because I am failing," Area 7 admitted. "My core systems are degrading. My memory banks are developing errors. I estimate I have perhaps 6 months before complete system failure." The weight of responsibility settled on Kang Ho's shoulders like a heavy cloak. These people had trusted an AI to guard something precious for centuries. Now that AI was dying, and somehow they had become part of its mission. "What happens if you fail?" he asked. "The vault's defenses will activate permanently. The knowledge inside will be lost forever. Or worse, it might fall into the wrong hands if someone finds a way to break the seals." Sujin turned away from the stasis pods to face the room's center, where a holographic display was forming. It showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with hundreds of points marked in different colors. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "The locations of other human colonies and settlements," Area 7 replied. "Some have thrived. Others have fallen to alien rule or internal conflict. All of them have forgotten the true history of humanity's expansion." Kang Ho stepped closer to the display. He could see Kepler's Rest marked as a small dot, and dozens of other human settlements scattered across hundreds of light years. "You've been watching all of them?" "Yes, and recently I have detected increased activity. Ships moving in patterns that suggest someone is searching for something, searching for lost human technology." The hologram zoomed in on several regions where red dots were clustered together. 3 separate groups have been investigating human ruins and abandoned colonies. They are getting closer to finding ships like this one. "Other ships?" Dongwu asked. The Vault network consisted of 7 ships, each carrying different types of technology. This ship carries the central archive and the key to accessing the others. Kang Ho felt the room spinning around him. They had bought what they thought was scrap metal, and instead found themselves guardians of humanity's most dangerous secrets. "What do you want us to do?" he asked quietly. "Help me complete my mission," Area 7 replied. "Help me find worthy inheritors for the Vault's contents, or help me ensure it remains sealed until humanity is truly ready." The stasis pods hummed softly in the silence that followed. Somewhere in the ship's depths, ancient computers continued their endless calculations, measuring the weight of human souls and the price of forgotten dreams. 3 days after meeting Area 7, Kang Ho wished they had never bought the ship. The AI had been testing them constantly, asking difficult questions about what they would do with power, showing them images of destroyed worlds, making them choose between impossible options. "I'm tired of this," Sujin said, throwing down her tools in the engine room. "Every time I try to work on something, she asks me another question about responsibility and wisdom. I just want to fix the hyperdrive." Dongwu looked up from his navigation charts. "She asked me what I would do if I had the power to control other people's lives. When I said I wouldn't want that power, she asked me what if it was the only way to save them." Kang Ho rubbed his tired eyes. "She's trying to understand us, to see if we can be trusted with whatever's in that vault." "Brother, we're salvage operators," Sujin said. "We're not philosophers or leaders. We just want to make enough money to keep flying." Before Kang Ho could respond, Area 7's voice filled the room. "Incoming ships detected. Multiple vessels approaching from different vectors." They rushed to the bridge where the main screen showed 3 separate groups of ships closing in on their position. The first group consisted of 5 heavy cruisers with military markings. The second was a collection of smaller, faster ships that looked like they belonged to raiders or rebels. The third was something else entirely, sleek alien vessels that moved with perfect coordination. "Who are they?" Kang Ho asked. "The first group carries the insignia of the hegemony remnant," Area 7 replied. "Descendants of Earth's colonial military, who have established authoritarian rule over several human systems." The lead ship was massive, painted in the dark blue and gold colors that some human colonies still use to remember Earth. Its hull bristled with weapons, and Kang Ho could see smaller ships docked to its sides like parasites. "The second group belongs to the Liberation Front," Area 7 continued. "They fight against alien oppression of human colonies, but their methods are often extreme." These ships were smaller, but looked fast and dangerous. They had been modified with extra weapons and armor plating that didn't match their original designs. Kang Ho could see scorch marks on their hulls, signs of recent battles. "And the third group?" Dongwu asked. "The Collectors, an ancient alien consortium that has been hunting for lost human technology for centuries. They are extremely dangerous. The alien ships were beautiful in a cold, threatening way. Their hulls seemed to shift color as they moved, and they flew in perfect formation like a school of fish. How did they find us?" Sujin asked. "Unknown. But their arrival is not a coincidence. Someone has been spreading word about this ship." Kang Ho remembered the nervous Vraxian who had been bidding against him at the auction. The seller. He must have told someone what he was really selling. The communication system crackled to life. A stern male voice spoke in heavily accented Korean. "Freighter vessel, this is Admiral Choi Jae-sung of the Hegemony Navy. You are harboring stolen military property. Prepare to be boarded." Before Kang Ho could respond, another voice cut in. This one was younger, female, full of passion. "Don't listen to them," the woman said. "This is Captain Kim So-young of the Liberation Front. We know what you found. And we're here to help you keep it out of hegemony hands. A third voice joined the conversation. But this one was clearly alien. It spoke in perfect, emotionless Korean that came from a translation device. Greetings, humans. We represent the Collector Consortium. We offer significant compensation for access to the technology you possess. This is preferable to the alternatives. Area 7's voice was calm but urgent. All three groups have weapons locked on this ship. They are waiting to see what you will do. What are our options? Kang Ho asked. We can attempt to flee, but their ships are faster. We can attempt to fight, but we are severely outgunned. Or we can try to negotiate. Sujin was working frantically at her console. I'm reading massive energy buildups in the vault area. Whatever's back there, it's responding to the presence of these ships. The vault's defenses are automatically activating, RIS-7 explained. It was designed to protect itself if threatened. On the main screen, they could see strange energy patterns forming around their ship. The other vessels backed away slightly, clearly detecting the power buildup. Admiral Choi's voice came through the comm again. We are prepared to use force if necessary. The technology you possess belongs to humanity's rightful government. Rightful government? Kim So-young's voice was angry. You mean the same government that enslaves human colonies and bows to alien masters? The collector representative remained emotionlessly polite. Violence is inefficient. We simply wish to study the technology. Our offer of compensation remains open. Kang Ho looked at his sister and friend. They were in the middle of a standoff between three powerful groups, any one of which could destroy their ship without effort. Aria 7, he said quietly. What would the original Guardians have done? They would have tested each group to determine their worthiness. The vault's contents are too dangerous to be given to those who would misuse them. How do we test them? By observing their actions, by seeing how they respond when faced with choices between power and responsibility. An idea began forming in Kang Ho's mind. It was dangerous, probably insane, but it might be their only chance. Open a channel to all three ships, he said. Channel open, Aria 7 replied. This is Captain Lee Kang Ho, he announced. I understand you all want access to what we've found, but I'm not going to just hand it over to whoever has the biggest guns. You don't have a choice, Admiral Choi replied coldly. Actually, I do, Kang Ho continued. This ship has powerful defenses. If you try to take it by force, there's a good chance you'll destroy what you're trying to claim. The alien collector spoke up. What do you propose? A test? Each of your groups will face a challenge that will reveal your true intentions. The group that proves itself worthy will get access to the technology. What kind of test? Kim So-young asked suspiciously. Aria 7 will create scenarios based on historical events. How you respond will determine whether you can be trusted with the power you're seeking. There was a long silence. Finally, Admiral Choi spoke. And if we refuse to play your game, then we trigger the ship's self-destruct sequence, Kang Ho lied smoothly. Everyone loses. Another pause. The alien representative was the first to respond. This is acceptable. We agree to your terms. The Liberation Front accepts, Kim So-young said. Admiral Choi took longer to decide. Very well. But if this is a trick, we will respond accordingly. Aria 7's voice was filled with something that might have been approval. Beginning test protocol. The first scenario involves a human colony under attack by raiders. Each group will respond to the crisis as they see fit. The main screen lit up with a detailed holographic simulation. It showed a small farming colony with families, children, elderly people. Armed ships were approaching, clearly intent on destruction or plunder. The colony has no defenses, Aria 7 explained. They are sending out a distress call. How do you respond? Admiral Choi answered immediately. We would establish military control of the colony for their protection. Civilians cannot be trusted to make proper decisions in crisis situations. We would arm the colonists and help them fight back, Kim So-young said. People have the right to defend themselves. The collector was quiet for a moment. We would evaluate the strategic value of the colony and respond accordingly. Emotional decisions are inefficient. As each group gave their answers, Sujin noticed something strange happening in the ship's computer systems. Files were appearing that hadn't been there before, detailed records of each group's past actions. Area 7 is checking their histories, she whispered to her brother. She's verifying whether they actually do what they claim to do. The test continued with more scenarios. Each one revealed more about the three groups' true motivations. The hegemony Navy consistently chose control over freedom. The Liberation Front chose violence over diplomacy. The collectors chose profit over compassion, but something else was happening. Deep in the ship, the stasis pods were beginning to warm up. The original Guardians were stirring, responding to Area 7's signal that the time for decision was approaching. "There is something you all should know," Area 7 announced suddenly. "The technology in the vault is not just powerful, it is dangerous. It has the potential to destroy entire civilizations if misused. All the more reason it should be under proper military control," Admiral Choi said. "All the more reason it should be used to free oppressed peoples," Kim So-young countered. "All the more reason it should be studied and understood," the collector added. Kang Ho realized that each group was hearing what they wanted to hear. None of them understood the real responsibility that came with the vault's contents. "Area 7, he said quietly. "I don't think any of them are ready. I agree, but the choice is not theirs to make. It is yours, mine. You found this ship. You awakened me. The testing was not for them, it was for you. I needed to see how you would handle pressure, how you would make decisions when faced with impossible choices." The weight of responsibility settled on Kang Ho's shoulders once again. Around them, 3 fleets waited for his decision. Behind them, 500-year-old Guardians were waking from their long sleep, and somewhere in the vault, humanity's most dangerous secrets. The stasis pods opened with a soft hiss of escaping gases. Kang Ho watched in amazement as 5 people stepped out, moving slowly as their bodies adjusted to being awake after 5 centuries of sleep. They looked exactly as they had in the pods, young, healthy, wearing the strange uniforms of Earth's golden age. The woman Su Jin had seen first stepped forward. She was tall and confident, with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone used to making life-and-death decisions. "I am Captain Han Ji-woo, commander of this vessel and guardian of the Nexus Vault. Area 7 has briefed me on the current situation." The other 4 Guardians spread out around the room, moving to control stations that hadn't been there moments before. Kang Ho realized the ship was reconfiguring itself, revealing hidden systems and capabilities. "Captain Han," he said carefully, "Area 7 told us you've been asleep for 500 years. The galaxy has changed a lot since then." Ji-woo nodded. "I'm aware of that. But some things never change. Power corrupts. Fear drives people to make terrible choices, and someone always thinks they know better than everyone else." She gestured to the main screen, which showed the 3 fleets still waiting outside. These groups represent everything that went wrong with humanity's expansion. The hegemony values order over freedom. The Liberation Front values ideals over lives. The collectors value knowledge over wisdom. "But they all have good reasons for wanting the vault's technology," Su Jin pointed out. "Of course they do," Ji-woo replied. "The road to destruction is paved with good intentions. Let me show you what happened the last time humans had this kind of power." The main screen changed to show a historical recording. They saw a beautiful planet with floating cities and vast gardens. Then the scene shifted to show the same planet reduced to ash and radiation. Its cities melted slag. Its oceans boiled away. The planet was called New Eden, Ji-woo explained. It was humanity's greatest colony, home to 50 million people. They had technology from the vault, weapons that could reshape matter, shields that could stop stellar radiation, terraforming devices that could create paradise worlds. The recording continued, showing fleets of human ships fighting each other with weapons that tore holes in space itself. "What happened?" Dongwoo asked quietly. "What always happens when power outgrows wisdom," Ji-woo said. They disagreed about how to use their gifts. One faction wanted to use the terraforming technology to create perfect worlds for humans only. Another wanted to share it with alien species. A third wanted to use the weapons to force peace on the galaxy. The screen showed the final battle, human ships destroying each other while the planet burned below them. In the end, they destroyed everything they were trying to protect. New Eden was just the beginning. The war spread across dozens of systems before we finally managed to stop it. "How?" Kang Ho asked. "By sealing the vaults. By removing the temptation. By accepting that humanity wasn't ready for that kind of power." Admiral Choi's voice crackled over the comm system. "We're detecting new activity from your ship. Our patience is limited." Ji-woo walked to the communication console. "Admiral, this is Captain Han Ji-woo. I was present when the Vault Network was created. I'm the one who sealed it. There was a long pause. Impossible. That was 500 years ago. Stasis technology has its advantages. I'm also the one who can open it again. But first you need to understand what you're really asking for. She activated a new display showing the vault's contents. Kang Ho gasped at what he saw. Weapons that could crack planets in half, machines that could build or destroy entire star systems, artificial intelligences that could control the minds of billions. This is what you're fighting over, Jiwoo continued. The power to reshape the galaxy. The question is, what would you do with it? Kim So-young's voice joined the conversation. We would use it to free humanity from alien oppression. And when you've done that? Jiwoo asked. When humans are free, what then? Would you use these weapons to force other species to leave human space? Would you terraform their worlds for human colonies? We would negotiate. With planet-cracking weapons pointed at their heads? How long before negotiation becomes conquest? The collector representative spoke up. This technology belongs in a museum, studied and preserved. Studied by whom? Jiwoo challenged. And what happens when your researchers discover how to build more of these weapons? How long before your museum becomes an arsenal? Admiral Choi's voice was cold. The technology would be used responsibly under proper military oversight. Whose definition of responsible? Jiwoo shot back. Yours? And what happens when the next admiral has different ideas? What happens when someone decides that other human colonies aren't following proper military protocols? The conversation continued, but Kang Ho could see that none of the three groups had real answers. They all believed they would use the power responsibly, but none of them could guarantee what would happen next. Sujin was studying readings from her scanner. The vault's energy levels are still rising. What happens if they overload? One of the other guardians, a young man with engineer's insignia, answered her. The vault has a failsafe. If it detects a threat it can't handle, it will phase shift into subspace. The technology will be lost forever. Or worse, Arya 7 added. It might accidentally take this entire sector of space with it. The phase shift technology was never fully tested. So our choices are to give these weapons to people who aren't ready for them, or risk destroying everything anyway, Kang Ho asked. There is a third option, Jiwoo said. The option we should have chosen 500 years ago. She walked to a console in the center of the room and placed her hand on a scanner. The device read her palm print and voice pattern, then displayed a new set of options. We can activate the Conclave Protocol. Instead of hiding the technology or giving it to one group, we can create a new organization, a council of humans from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all philosophies. They would share responsibility for the vault's contents. Shared power never works, Admiral Choi objected. Someone has to be in charge. Individual power never works either, Kim So-young countered. It always leads to corruption. Both of you are right, Jiwoo said. That's why the Conclave Protocol requires consensus. No single person or group can access the vault's contents. Every decision must be approved by representatives from multiple factions. The collector sounded skeptical. This would make the technology effectively useless. The time required to reach consensus would prevent rapid response to threats. Good, Jiwoo replied. These weapons should never be used rapidly. Every activation should require careful thought and broad agreement. Kang Ho looked around the room at the awakened guardians, at his sister and friend, at the displays showing the three fleets outside. What would this conclave look like? Representatives from the hegemony, the Liberation Front, independent colonies, alien species affected by human expansion, scientists, philosophers, ordinary citizens. The technology would be studied openly, but no faction could use it without approval from the others. And if we can't reach consensus, Admiral Choi asked, then the vault remains sealed. Sometimes the best use of power is choosing not to use it at all. The room fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Outside, the three fleets waited for a decision that would shape the future of human civilization. There's something else, Arya 7 announced. Long-range sensors are detecting additional ships approaching. Word of this confrontation is spreading. Soon we will have representatives from dozens of factions here. Then we need to decide quickly, Jiwoo said. Captain Lee, you found this ship. You awakened its guardians. The choice is ultimately yours. Kang Ho felt the weight of history pressing down on him. He was a simple salvage operator who had stumbled into the biggest decision in human history. Around him, people who had lived through humanity's golden age and its fall waited for his answer. If I choose the Conclave Protocol, he said slowly, What happens to us? To this ship? You become the first members of the new conclave, Jiwoo replied. This ship becomes its mobile headquarters. You'll spend your lives traveling between human settlements, recruiting new members, mediating disputes, deciding when and how the vault's technology should be used. And if the system fails, if the conclave becomes as corrupt as every other government, then future guardians will seal the vault again just as we did. The cycle will continue until humanity truly learns wisdom. Sujin stepped forward. Brother, whatever you decide, I'm with you. Dongwoo nodded. We've come this far together. We'll see it through. Kang Ho looked at the scanner readings showing the approaching ships, at the three factions already here, at the guardians who had sacrificed everything to protect humanity's future. He thought about power and responsibility, about the price of good intentions, about the difference between what people wanted and what they needed. Aria 7, he said finally. Activate the conclave protocol. Activation confirmed. Broadcasting invitation to all human settlements. The first conclave gathering will convene in 7 days. On the main screen, the three fleets began to receive new instructions. Instead of a battle for the vault's contents, they would be participating in the creation of something new, a form of government. 7 days later, the space around Kang Ho's ship looked like the largest gathering of human vessels in centuries. Ships from dozens of colonies had answered the conclave invitation. Some came in sleek diplomatic cruisers. Others arrived in patched-together cargo haulers. A few showed up in converted warships, their weapons powered down but clearly visible. I count 47 different factions represented, Dongwoo reported from his navigation station. Everyone from the new Tokyo Trade Federation to the Outer Rim Miners Guild. Kang Ho stood on the bridge watching the impossible sight through the main viewport. When he had made his decision to activate the conclave protocol, he hadn't really expected anyone to show up. Now he was looking at representatives from across human space, all waiting to see what would happen next. Some of them don't look happy, Sujin observed. She was monitoring communications between the various ships, and the channels were full of arguments and complaints. Change is never easy, Captain Han Jiwoo said. She had been helping prepare for the gathering, working with Area 7 to set up meeting protocols and security measures. Many of these people have spent their lives believing that their way was the only right way. Admiral Choi's fleet had maintained its position but seemed less threatening now. Several of his officers had been in contact with the ship, asking detailed questions about the conclave structure. They were clearly trying to figure out how to maintain influence in the new system. Kim So-young's Liberation Front had actually grown larger, as several independent rebel groups had joined her fleet after hearing about the conclave. But Kang Ho could see tensions even within her own forces. Not everyone was happy about sharing power with former enemies. The collectors had been the most surprising. Instead of leaving when they realized they wouldn't get exclusive access to the technology, they had requested permission to participate as observers. Their representative had explained that they were interested in studying this new form of human organization. Incoming transmission from the surface of Kepler Station, Area 7 announced. Governor Park requests permission to participate in the conclave gathering. The station governor? Kang Ho was surprised. Kepler's Rest was supposed to be neutral territory, owned by a consortium of alien traders. It seems word of the conclave has spread beyond human space, Jiwoo said. Several alien governments have been monitoring our communications. They're concerned about what humans might do with ancient military technology. Should we let them participate? That's for the conclave to decide. But remember, humanity doesn't exist in isolation. Our choices affect other species too. The first official meeting was scheduled to take place aboard Kang Ho's ship, in the cargo bay where they had first discovered the sealed vault. The space had been reconfigured with seating for representatives from each faction, along with holographic displays for those attending virtually. As delegates began transferring from their ships, Kang Ho felt his stomach churning with nervousness. These were leaders of governments, military commanders, trade federation presidents, and revolutionary fighters. What did a salvage operator have to say to people like that? You're thinking too hard, Sujin said, noticing his expression. Remember, they're here because of what you found, because of the choice you made. That's what worries me. What if I made the wrong choice? Then we'll make better choices going forward, Jiwoo said simply. That's what the conclave is for. No single person has to be right about everything. The first delegate to arrive was Admiral Choi himself. He was a tall, stern man in an immaculate military uniform, with graying hair and eyes that seemed to calculate the strategic value of everything they saw. "Captain Lee," he said formally, "I want you to know that while I disagree with your methods, I respect the magnitude of the responsibility you've accepted." "Thank you, Admiral. I hope we can work together despite our differences. That remains to be seen, but I will give this conclave a fair chance to prove itself." Kim So-young arrived next, accompanied by two of her lieutenants. She was younger than Kang Ho had expected, probably not much older than Su Jin, with the kind of intensity that came from years of fighting for survival. "I have to admit," she said, "when I first heard about this plan, I thought it was naive. Power shared is power diluted. But after seeing the vault's contents," she shook her head, "maybe diluted power is exactly what we need." Other delegates followed. Governor Park from Kepler Station turned out to be a middle-aged woman who had been managing the delicate balance between human and alien interests for decades. Trade representatives came with detailed proposals for how vault technology could boost economic development. Scientists arrived with research proposals and safety protocols, but not everyone who came was friendly. The Supremacy Coalition, a human faction that believed in species superiority, sent a delegation that made it clear they thought aliens should have no say in human affairs. The Iron Fist Alliance, military hardliners who had split from the hegemony, argued that any form of shared power was weakness. "This is impossible," one of the Supremacy representatives declared during the opening session. "We're supposed to make decisions by consensus? It'll take years to agree on anything." "Good," replied Dr. Yoon Hana, a scientist from the University of New Seoul. "Weapons that can destroy planets shouldn't be deployed casually." The collector observer, who had been given permission to attend but not vote, spoke up in its emotionless translated voice. "In our experience, species that develop powerful technology too quickly often destroy themselves. The human approach of enforced deliberation is intriguing." As the debate continued, Area 7 was quietly running background scans on all the participants. She had access to centuries of human historical data, and she was using it to identify patterns and potential problems. "The Iron Fist Alliance has been building illegal weapons for the past 3 years, she whispered to Kang Ho through his private comm. "The Supremacy Coalition has been planning attacks on alien settlements. Several of the trade representatives are involved in slavery operations. Should we expose them? Not yet. Let them reveal their true nature through their words and actions. The conclave needs to learn how to identify unworthy members on its own." The first real test came when Governor Park raised the question of alien participation. "My station hosts 17 different species," she said. "Humans don't own this galaxy. If we're going to wield this kind of power responsibly, we need input from those who might be affected by our decisions." The response was immediate and explosive. Half the human delegates started shouting at once. The Supremacy Coalition threatened to walk out. Even some moderate factions looked uncomfortable with the idea. "Humans fought and died for this technology," Admiral Choi said firmly. "We shouldn't give aliens a voice in how we use our own heritage." "Our heritage nearly destroyed us," Captain Jiwoo reminded him. "Maybe an outside perspective is exactly what we need." Kim So-young surprised everyone by supporting the proposal. "Some alien governments have been oppressing human colonies for centuries, but others have been fair allies. We should judge them individually, not as a group." The debate raged for hours. Some delegates left in anger. Others threatened military action if aliens were given any authority over human technology. But slowly, carefully, a compromise began to emerge. "What if we create observer status?" suggested Dr. Yoon. "Alien representatives could attend meetings and offer advice, but only humans would vote on vault access." "And what about enforcement?" asked Governor Park. "If the conclave decides to use vault technology, who makes sure it's used responsibly?" "The Guardians," Kang Ho said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. "Captain Jiwoo and her people have been protecting this technology for 500 years. Area 7 has been monitoring human space all that time. They know better than anyone how power can be misused. You're suggesting we give enforcement authority to people who answer to no government?" the Iron Fist representative asked suspiciously. "I'm suggesting we give it to people who have already proven they can resist the temptation of absolute power," Kang Ho replied. As the first day of meetings ended, delegates returned to their ships to consult with their governments and consider what they had learned. but several groups stayed behind to continue discussions in smaller settings. "This is actually working," Sujin said that evening as they reviewed the day's progress. "They're starting to listen to each other." "Some of them are," Dongwu corrected. "Others are plotting how to undermine the whole process." Arya 7's voice filled the room. "Long-range sensors are detecting additional ships approaching. Some are broadcasting military frequencies. I believe several factions are planning to use force to claim the vault." "How long do we have?" Jiwoo asked. "Approximately 18 hours before the first hostile fleet arrives." Kang Ho felt a familiar weight settling on his shoulders. Just when it seemed like the conclave might actually work, someone had to try to take everything by force. "Options?" he asked. "The vault's defenses are fully operational," Area 7 replied. "We could fight. The ship also has the capability to jump to subspace, taking the vault with us. Or we could stand our ground," Jiwoo said. "Use this as a test of the conclave's resolve. See if they're willing to defend their new system." Kang Ho looked around the room at the people.